As I started to talk to other people about it who've read it, naturally you start to develop more appreciation for like, oh, I hadn't thought about that, or I didn't expect this thing.
Welcome to Proofread, a podcast to help you read more of what you love and less of what you don't.
Welcome to Proofread Classic Edition for today. We're doing an oldie, and we'll decide whether it's a goodie, right?
We will decide. Yeah, not all classics are the same.
I'm Tyler. I'm an English professor. I like to read, but I'm at a moment in my life where I don't have a ton of time to do that leisurely, you could say. I've got young kids at home, and this podcast project is an opportunity to try to get some more reading in. With me, as always.
I'm here too. My name's Casey. I'm a writing professor. I've got 4 kids. I love to read.
Yeah, you've got limited time and a big reading appetite, and we're trying to help you decide where should I go next, right?
Yum, 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 yum.
So one thing to be thinking about is like how you find books, right? And I know if you're like us, you hear recommendations from friends or from, prize-winning lists, or occasionally what will happen is someone will make a movie or an episode or what do we call those series? A TV series.
Mm-hmm.
And for this one, 100 Years of Solitude was recently made into a TV series.
Yeah.
And so it kind of put on the radar this classic work of literature. So the text for today is 100 Years of Solitude. It's by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This book was written in 1967, right?
Right.
Marquez is a Colombian writer. He spent a lot of time in different parts of South America. I think this was published in Argentina the first time it came out, actually, is where it kind of made its way to publication, I think. But Marquez eventually went on to win the Nobel Prize in Literature for his novels and short stories, this one being his most famous, what people would call his most important work. It's kind of the classic of Latin American literature.
Yeah,
in
we
the midst of
read
the 20th century.
an English translation, and that came out in 1970 is what I read, and I also saw some quote that said he loved the English translation.
Yeah, he was really happy with this translation. So the translation's by Gregory Rabassa. One thing about this book that you're like, I'm not sure if I've heard of it or if you haven't, you might have heard this very famous opening line. Many years later, as he faced the firing squad, Colonel Arellano Buendia was to remember that distant afternoon when his father took him to discover ice.
Pretty catchy first
Pretty
line.
catchy,
Nicely
right?
done, nicely done.
It also puts you immediately into the time of this novel, right? Like constantly foreshadowing the future, but then not telling you about the future and kind of moving through there.
Exactly, yeah. That's kind of how the whole book goes.
The book often gets attention for being beautifully written, for having just a ton of lyrical. It's got a lot of life in it. There's a lot going on. It's jammed packed. When he died in 2014, the Colombian president at the time, Juan Manuel Santos, he described Marquez as the greatest Colombian who ever lived.
Wow.
To which I say, did you never meet Shakira? Or my mother-in-law, for that matter? If he spent 5 minutes with my mother-in-law, he might disagree. My mother-in-law is Colombian, so I was actually excited.
Competition.
Yeah.
But I love that it's a writer that he would said that
right?
about. How
Exactly.
nice.
What a cool thing, right? I think just this talks about the importance of this text for Colombia and kind of, I think, for all Latin American literature. So
Yeah. Also, the whole story is like an analogy of Latin America. Lots going on.
While also a retelling of Genesis in some ways.
Yes. I
right?
mean, this is about a lot of things.
It's complex.
A lot
it
of
is
things
layered.
happen in it.
And so we're going to start it off here with our classic. Classic for a classic is our reader skip moment.
Okay.
Casey, are you ready?
I'm ready.
1, 2, 3. Watch Encanto. Wait, sorry. I think, Casey, can you say yours again? You were a solid
Skip.
And I am a solid watch Encanto.
Okay. Intriguing on both counts.
So let me if I can explain mine.
Please, yes.
So if you are interested in a story about Colombia, about a Colombian family that's dealing with multi-generational trauma and there's elements of magical realism, right? The Disney movie Encanto offers you those things.
Yeah, it's going to get the job done with a lot less trauma.
But if you watch the movie Encanto, so watch that first, and if you watch that and you think to yourself, I wonder what the mature adult version of this would be, then maybe it's time for you to make your way over to 100 Years of Solitude.
You're exactly right. That's a great suggestion. I wish I had done that. I wish I had heard this podcast and done that.
The thing to keep in mind when you're reading a book like this, for as important as it is and as much as people talk about it, right, that the content is there, and it can be really challenging and even troubling, right? One of the dominant themes is incest, and that's something that you're wrestling with the whole time throughout the book. That's kind of consistent throughout in terms of looming over some of the plot points of the narrative. And then there's also sexual content at certain points. I wouldn't call it explicit, but it's there, and a big part of this is the different family members that go pursue different relationships. And then violence. There's a war that happens, and people are killed in violent ways. And those things are just part of this novel. I think you can say that that's part of the complexity of the novel, but it's also part of the brutality of the reading experience. And so that's something that I think anyone who picks this book up needs to be aware. Oh, magical realism. There's going to be people floating after they eat chocolate, you know. But actually, that's not. It's not just that, right?
Yeah, this is a tough book, and a lot of things happen. And the reason why it's a skip for me, so it's written in the 60s, late 60s.
Late 60s.
And there's just like a lot of kind of casual misogyny and casual sexism that for me, a woman of a certain age.
Not living in the late 60s.
It's my personal preference to not read that now for my pleasure reading.
Yeah.
Is it a critique of a patriarchy? Was it written in a different time? Yes. I don't know. Maybe. Is it a relevant commentary? Yes. But it wasn't to my personal taste because I found it a little bit yucky.
Yeah.
I remember reading this in college, and I don't remember anything else about it. Totally blocked out.
Is it what you thought it was? I mean, I guess you've read it before, but you didn't remember.
This book can't be what anyone has ever thought of. It's very bizarre. And some of the details are so awesome. You know, like there's this guy, and he's the colonel, and they spent all this time talking about how he has armpit sores. Like, that's kind of a detail that I appreciate. Like, it's just like so... It's very interesting.
Could we get some more armpit sores in literature?
Well, you know, I mean, it's just the kind of thing you don't think of. It's not a cliche, or it's very imaginative.
Yeah.
But it's a little rated R for me.
Yeah. I think one of the questions a book like this brings up is what you have to put up with to enjoy some of the grandiosity of a text like this.
It is literary, to get these themes.
It's very literary. There's symbolism there. There's a lot of things that are happening. It's the kind of book that you appreciate more if you sit down to talk to someone about, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I read this isolated by myself in solitude, you know, not for 100 years,
100
but
years of
100 hours maybe. It felt like it took a while. And in solitude, you can just be thinking like, what is going on, right? Especially because I didn't track a lot of it. But as I started to talk to other people about it who've read it, naturally you start to develop more appreciation for like, oh, I hadn't thought about that, or I didn't expect this thing. And then as I kind of continued reading it, I don't want to say my opinion changed, but I had a different sense of appreciating what was happening in the text, you know, what it would mean to different people and some of the moves. But then I find myself asking at the end, yeah, but there's still some of the components in here that I don't know if I want to be living inside, right? Like this is not the story I want to be spending
That's right.
a lot of time inside. Now, having said that, if we want to give this book its due, right, in terms of saying why would this book gain such such a following and appreciation, I think it is because it's grandiose and it's sweeping in what it tries to do.
It's very sweeping. It has these huge themes, you know, like history repeats itself.
Yeah.
And it just like it's pretty cool how it is done. It's masterful. History repeats itself literally through this family. They all have like exactly the same name, you know, like Junior, Junior, Junior. That's part of it. It makes commentary about war and being a banana republic, literally.
Yeah.
Like the banana company comes in.
Yeah. So colonialism is huge
Colonialism,
here.
yeah.
When the banana company arrives, when they set that up, that's kind of the beginning of the end of a really prosperous moment for these people.
Yeah, so interesting modern themes about gender and comments about men. And while I mentioned before that I do think this exists in a patriarchy and there's like a lot of casual misogyny that sort of bothers me. I just like I'm sick of it. Live my whole life in it. I don't. Let's move on. But I will say there were women characters that were very interesting and strong, and I loved the parts that resonated for me was this Ursula, the matriarch of the family,
Yeah.
and her whole journey I can relate to. Because at the very end, she's like gets teeny tiny like a doll, and they just carry her around and ignore her. I see that being my future. I'm really interested in what women have to say about raising children
Yeah.
because I'm a woman, right? So, and this was written by a man, and he has these really interesting things to say too. That about how this Ursula, she understands her children better as adults. And she's like, oh, I thought this kid was this, but actually it was just pride that made him do all of this. And I thought when he was, moving in my womb, I thought it meant this, but actually it just turned out he never could love anyone. And that's also something I'm going through. I have adult children now. Two
Yeah.
are married, and you see them, parenting goes on. And he really explains that in a way I've never heard anyone talk about. And so
Yeah.
I really appreciated that. And I thought, wow, that has really made me think. I'm like, that's happening to me right now. I'm seeing my children differently. And it's funny. I mean, there were times when I just was laughing. And then it made me happy to know that the author liked this translation because I thought, well, I bet he makes that joke's probably in Spanish too or something like
Yeah.
that. This tone is probably similar. But it is rough content that is pretty disturbing.
Yeah, I would say brutal, right?
It's
And
brutal.
to some degree, that's part of the point. Right?
Exactly.
I actually was reading this with someone. I told them I was reading this. They're from Latin America, and they're like, "Oh, I've always wanted to read this." And so I was like, "Oh, cool, read it with me. We'll read it at the same time." And as we'd see each other for the first 80 pages, she's like, "I did not expect this.
It's not- you don't expect
and
it.
the brutality, the relationships, right? Like
Did
you're
not
saying,
expect my professor to recommend this to me and read it with me.
yeah. But then by the end, she had a really deep appreciation for it, and I think she said this was really familiar to me, right? Like the
Okay.
whole scene. There's also moments where there's this moment where they kind of talk in almost like a pig Latin. And she said that was really delightful. She read it in Spanish. So she said that was a
yeah.
really delightful thing to come across because her family did that and she didn't know that a lot of people did that. She thought that was like a quirk when her family, when they'd kind of talk. So those kind of things I think are fun and interesting. I kind of asked her though, I was like, what's your pitch for why someone should or should not read this? And she said, this book made me think a lot. She's like, it felt very familiar to me. She felt like a lot of these relationship structures still exist in her upbringing that she
Interesting.
experienced. She didn't mean like in her family, but just in the culture that she came
Right.
out of. She wanted to make that point clear.
Yeah.
I didn't read this and think I want 100 more pages of that or something. But some people do. Some people
Yeah.
have read this and been like, this book changed my life. All these things about her. And I think I sided more with you, Casey, which was like, I just don't want to hear what awful thing happens to the next generation. I'm tired of the brutality. I'm going to go back to my initial thing, though. Like, if you watched the movie Encanto and you were like, man, what would an adult version of this look like? A mature version, it would look like this. And if you're interested in
for
that,
sure
because
would.
the thing we haven't mentioned, which is kind of the hallmark of this and Marquez in general, is the magical realism.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that is a fun thing
It's
here is
kind of
that
fun,
it's
yeah.
a realist novel. It's all existing in the real. And then suddenly the priest is floating when he eats
It's
chocolate.
just floating when he eats chocolate. Then there's just some ghosts that talk to you every now
Yeah,
and then. Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty fun in that way.
Yeah.
I do like that.
What shelf does this go on for you, Casey?
This goes on the shelf called, with all due respect, no thank you. For me.
Yeah. Which is saying, I don't want to disparage this. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's not good, but this is not a read.
Yeah, I kind of want you to know, I get it, but I don't want to
Yeah.
read it.
Yeah. I think this goes on my one more notch on my well-read belt because this
For
has
sure, this is a classic,
Yeah.
and this is one that's on lists.
but
and things
it's
like
not
that.
it's on that shelf that's like I read it. I'm not telling other people to
I
read
did
it.
it. I survived
But I
reading this book.
got it. I understand what it's about now. I feel like I understand a little bit more about this tradition of magical realism, what it can do, but I'm not like, oh man, everyone should read this, or oh, that's a classic we should all return to. I think for me, it's like, okay, I got a sense of what that text is about, and
Yeah.
it was rough.
Yeah, it's rough. And I do have a book that I would like to recommend to you.
Yeah.
Since you made your way through this book.
Mm-hmm.
It is a book that I love, and I love the experience of reading it. And it's a similar thing because it's kind of a family saga. It's very funny. It's lyrical in the same way that this is, and it's about a family from Iran. And it's by a guy named Daniel Nayeri, and it's called Everything Sad is Untrue.
Ooh.
They remind me of each other a little bit.
Yeah, some influence there.
Yeah, but it's one that I love to be in that world. And when
Yeah.
it was over, I just kept thinking about it and kept you remember them. And it's a true story.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
There's this line that Marquez said. He said this in his Nobel Prize acceptance speech that I thought was interesting. I just looked at that because I was like, oh, won the Nobel Prize. And this book didn't read the Nobel
Right.
Prize. He won it for
his body,
but this
for
is
literature.
This is his main contribution. But he says he's talking about at this time when it was like 1982 and they're thinking a lot about Latin American literature. And he said, our crucial problem has been a lack of conventional means to render our lives believable. This, my friends, is the crux of our solitude.
Oh,
I'm glad that Marquez wrote this and that it's done what it's done. But for the individual reader going through it, it is a bit of a rough go. So I think that we can at this point say to our friend Gabriel Garcia Marquez, you've been proofread. Perhaps we're prudes. Maybe we're prudes.
maybe we are. Maybe we're just a little sensitive. But that's that. We are what we are.
Proofread is a production of BYU Radio and is produced by Jeff Simpson with help from Erica Price, Becca Hurley, and Lisa Valentine Clark. Find us on YouTube at Proofread Podcast for video clips and more. And please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for spending your time with us today, and happy reading.